Hello, everyone. Welcome to Teaching with Magic, a podcast exploring the intersection of education, fantasy, and literacy. Here at Teaching with Magic, we explore the different ways that teachers in the fiction and in the real world make magic for their students. You'll hear discussions about teachers and teaching methods in fantasy, science fiction, and pop culture. You'll hear interviews with scholars in various fields about important topics in education, and you'll get to be a part of an ongoing conversation about why the imagination matters. Welcome to Teaching with Magic. Hello, friends, and welcome back. This is the first episode of Teaching with Magic of 2024. And first, may I just say thank you. Thank you for sticking with me this past year as I began the podcasting journey. Thank you for staying with me when I had to start my new job. Thank you for all of your love and support. 2023 was a pretty crazy ride with lots of new beginnings and starting over and thinking fast on my feet. I appreciate all the support you've given on this project, and I hope that you'll continue to stick with me as we continue. Today's episode is going to be a short one. Between the holiday, vacation, illnesses, scrambling for last-minute doctor's appointments, and then back to work once again has left little time for writing and recording. It has, however, given me a lot of time to think about the new year and to think about how I want the Teaching with Magic project to grow. Before I begin, I would like to share some reflections that came to my mind these last few weeks, and I hope that they will be as helpful for you as they have been for me. I can be a very messy perfectionist at times. That is to say, I tend to set very high standards for myself, and then I get angry when I don't meet them. The standards themselves are pretty impossible to meet, and I don't really set myself up for success when I make them. When New Year's Eve came around, I couldn't bear the thought of making New Year's resolutions because I didn't meet any of the resolutions that I had made last year. I didn't meet my reading goals. I was struggling to find time to read between work and the podcast and my child, and I was frustrated that I wasn't writing as much as I used to either. I'm sure you can already see some problems with that thinking. I wasn't focused on what I did accomplish, only what I didn't accomplish. So, of course, I wallowed. It's not my best quality, but unfortunately, it seems to be all I can do when I set impossible goals for myself instead of smart ones. My frustration only increased with my return to work as my school started its winter data cycle with a benchmark assessment. For the life of me, I will never understand why we give elementary students a test during the week after we return from a vacation, but unfortunately, that's a decision above my pay grade. For clarity, as the school's reading interventionist, I'm responsible for collecting the results of this benchmark for all 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students in my school, then following up with students who are, quote-unquote, flagged for reading difficulties on the assessment with a phonics screener and a fluency benchmark. This process helps me to determine my next steps for intervention. Have my intervention students made any progress in September? Do I need to add new students to my groups? And is my intervention even working? In all honesty, the data did not look very good. It wasn't too bad. It just wasn't exactly where I wanted or expected it to be. I can't give you too many details for privacy reasons. I do work with minors after all. But as a perfectionist, it just wasn't quite there, if you take my meaning. As I dissected and coded and organized the data, I saw a lot of red on my screen. And after a few hours of just seeing all that red, it started to be a bit discouraging and, well, frankly, made my eyes cross. Then I started doing some one-on-one check-ins with my intervention students to submit those screeners and benchmarks. That's when I began to see what truly matters. I saw kids who had struggled with basic concepts at the beginning of the year read smoothly and accurately. I saw kids who finally felt confident about their reading, even when their perfectionism got in their way sometimes. I saw a student who told me that they felt that our intervention was working because, and I quote, I couldn't read before and now I can. I had been so focused on the big picture that I had failed to grasp the small steps that it takes to achieve the big picture, and that growth is achieved in many different ways. Yes, my computer screen still shows many red numbers, but those numbers are only one data point in the overall scheme of things. And besides, the school year isn't over yet. So for now, I'm going to remember the wins, the smiles, and the newfound confidence that my students feel in themselves. And I'm going to use the data that I do have to keep us all moving forward and to keep growing little by little. For my part, and for this project, I'm going to keep writing, I'm going to keep reading, and I'm going to keep reaching out to teachers for this podcast. But in the meantime, you, dear listener, can participate too. More than anything, teaching is a collaborative effort. And I want Teaching with Magic to be a community for teachers everywhere. To that end, I'm inviting listeners to my Discord channel, where you can receive and share updates, ask for advice, read news and suggestions from other teachers, and more as the community grows. There are some updates and future events that will remain a part of the paid subscription option, and that is simply because, just like in teaching, time and energy are valuable, and there are just some things that I cannot do for free. Community, however, is priceless, especially in a profession that can be isolating. As for future projects in the podcast, I'm going to continue working on them as much as I possibly can. I'm going to release 2 more episodes for February and March, and then I'm going to close the season and start again with season 2 after Memorial Weekend. In the meantime, I'll be working on some courses for sale on the Teaching with Magic website, and I'm going to have transcripts of past podcast episodes available to read. But like I said, these things cost time and money to complete, and for that, I need your help. Luckily, there are several ways that you can get involved, and they're all available at your own pace. You can subscribe to the Teaching with Magic Patreon, with various subscription tiers available at your convenience. Teaching with Magic is also available on Ko-Fi, and instead of subscription tiers, you can donate towards specific Teaching with Magic projects, for example, the transcript fees. And finally, you can take a class with me either on Signum's Space channel, or you can email me directly for access to the collaborative masterclass on soundscapes with Jordan Rennells of the Long Expected Soundscape. More details are in the show notes. I want to reiterate that this podcast would not be possible without your support. Whether that support is monetary or a pat on the back, a comment, or even just an email, all of these things are important and all of these things are greatly appreciated. The entry for that giveaway? A review of the podcast. No, it didn't have to be a 5-star review. Just a review. So that way, other teachers could hear this podcast as well. The more you rate, the more you review, the more teachers this podcast can reach, and the more opportunity for guests. And while I'm reaching out to academics and those with a PhD or other scholars in the field, I want to hear from you as well. I want to hear from teachers. I want to hear from those for whom magic, fantasy, science fiction, popular culture are all present and welcome in their classroom. For our finale episode, I have a panel of teachers ready for a collaborative discussion. It's going to be a wonderful time. You're going to hear from lots of different teachers, different subjects, different experiences, and different grade levels. But like I said, this podcast can't exist without you. So if you would like a spot on Teaching with Magic, even if it's just a quick check-in, a quick 5 minutes, just to talk about what you find magical about teaching and what you find magical about fantasy and why fantasy matters in the classroom, you can leave a voice message. You can send me an email. You can comment on the website, or you can comment on the Spotify page. It's entirely up to you. So please get in touch, share this podcast with your friends, your family, and above all, keep making magic. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your other favorite podcast feeds. If you enjoyed listening, please leave a rating and a review as well. You can read and find out more about Teaching with Magic by visiting our website, teachingwithmagic.blog. You can leave a message on our podcast page, read past Teaching with Magic posts, and check out our book lists on our affiliate page. We also invite you to support us on Patreon. You'll have access to bonus material, our Discord channel, live Q&As, and you'll get a sneak peek at future products such as lesson plans, worksheets, and other teaching tools. The link is always available in our show notes and the podcast page on our website. Thanks again for joining us, and as always, keep making magic.